All right, we're back for another conversation, this time with my friend and fellow student and fan of mimetic theory, Jason Jones. How you doing, Jason?
Good to see you, brother.
Great to see you. I'm gonna have to learn some of those karate moves from you, now that I've been dealing with all these vicious wrestlers.
You're a wrestler, bro. You need to learn some Muay Thai. Boom, kick him in the
Oh,
leg.
you're Muay Thai. You're not karate, right? Am I insulting you if I call you karate?
No,
What are
I
you?
don't. Most people they don't know the difference between Brazilian
I've
Jiu-Jitsu.
seen
Muay
those old
Thai.
photos of you. You look straight up like Ken from Street Fighter, and those.
Well, I'm embarrassed to say I was. That's when I was fighting in Japan in the '90s, and I tried to look
you,
like how
you
they
say
made.
you say that just like an aside, like like living the Chuck Norris life. When I was
Yeah, I
boxing
was.
people in
Well, it was my dream
Japan.
since when I was in third grade on Kung Fu Theater. I kid you not. I saw a documentary called "Fighting Black Kings" about these black guys that ended up going to do these like full contact uh fighting in Japan, and they became really good. Willie Williams and William Oliver, these guys were kind of my heroes. So I saw this, it was on Kung Fu Theater. It was different because it was a documentary, and I
Yeah,
loved Kung Fu Theater. Like Kung Fu Theater, and like Black Belt magazine and Soldier of Fortune magazine when I was
yeah,
a kid were sort of which is strange for to think what I do for a living now, right?
yeah.
But they were the doorway to the imaginary world that I lived in, and I wanted to go in Japan and fight in this like no this full contact, no padding tournament that these guys from New York City in the early '70s went to fight in, called Fighting Black Kings. They were like the first Americans to go there and do this, and I ended up fighting in that, and fighting in Japan, but I wanted to be in movies. So I was trying to look like, when you talk about I look like Ken, I actually had full head of hair then. And I wanted to look like what the Japanese thought, like how they portrayed the Caucasian in anime is how I was when I went to fight. I was trying to look that way so that I would be discovered and become a Japanese martial arts
Yeah.
movie star. Fortunately for me, that did not happen because I can't imagine if that would have happened in any way, would have turned out good, for my soul. So anyway, yeah, I was trying to look like what I looked like, which is embarrassing, but the truth.
Jason Jones.
Jason the Jones. And yeah, they would spell my name wrong. They
Yeah,
would, yeah, but who cared? Anyway.
well, that's fantastic. Well, it's always great to have you on. There's so many things going on. We're all Girardians now, aren't we? It's just how it works, right? You have to get the cool kids, including a person who could be VP, to be a name dropping Rene Girard before everybody's going to want to get on this bandwagon. So, since we were the guys that have been talking about Rene Girard before it was cool, it's our job to take a little bit of a victory lap, but also to try to help guide the ascent of Rene Girard thinking and consciousness into a proper direction, right? Not using it in a cynical way, right? You don't want to be using it to, I mean, it's fine. People can do whatever they want to do to, use these great ideas to make money or business or whatever. But there's something so profound with what Girard glimpsed at and helps us glimpse at with the scripture, because ultimately the profundity of Girard's work is to the extent that he's able to capture the gospels in a very fresh new way that people have missed in somewhat in their lives. So it's our job to kind of help hopefully guide this in the right direction, right?
Yeah, no, it's interesting you should say that. It is exciting to see people that are very close to power, real power. And you know that they've been formed by the same thinkers that we've been formed by, Rene Girard being one of them. And then it's also for me a little frightening when I have a lot of their cell phone numbers in this phone, and I can text them. But at the same time, it's a little scary because sometimes I wonder, for me, Girard is, I'm not a philosopher or a theologian. I'm a human rights activist. And so for me, Girard is almost like pastoral theology. Um, it directs me. Girard, the really impact that Girard had on me was because I was well into 2 decades in my apostolate
Mm-hmm.
when I first discovered Girard, although I bought his book 10 years before. But the cover of I See Satan Fall was so unattractive to me that at the end of the day, I thought it was probably a ridiculous book from the cover. It
Yeah,
looked like
yeah,
That cover still bothers me to this day. But I purchased the book like in 2000 because I knew that the Cardinal Ratzinger was a great admirer of Rene Girard. So I thought I should read this book, but then I'd always look at the cover and go, meh. When I finally, like around, I think when I submitted my first book to the publisher around the same time, I don't know
Mhm.
what it was. I think maybe I saw a Girard lecture on YouTube.
Mhm.
And then that really, I got excited and I fell into all things Girard. In fact, I just showed you my latest book. I have a Amazon alert. If the word Girard
Yeah,
comes up, I like buy it. And
yeah,
so, but for me, Girard gave me two things. One was I always felt like a loser. I say that my job is I'm a loser that serves losers, and in the end, we're going to lose. So I run an organization that the Vulnerable People Project, and our mission is very simple. I conceived of the idea, a very Girardian idea, actually, as a college student, that I wanted to found a human rights organization that 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 would run influence campaigns for communities that had no support. I thought the most embattled communities are the most vulnerable communities. If communities have any sort of base of support, they're not the most vulnerable communities. So, how do you raise money and generate influence for communities that are unknown or even maybe repulsive to most people? So that was sort of my idea, and then I just wondered why I failed all the time, And then I read Girard, and he helped me understand that to stand with the vulnerable is to become vulnerable.
Peter Thiel has a quote. He says, "If you think you're going to succeed, if you think you're going to lose, you will lose. If you think you're going to succeed, you may succeed. You may or may not, but you could succeed. But if you think you're going to lose, you will definitely lose if your mind goes there." But
It's
you're
interesting that
like the
people Girardi
antithesis
would
of,
say that.
yeah.
Well, the reason why I find that interesting is to stand with the vulnerable is to become vulnerable, right? Like,
You're like the antithesis of the Trump brand. We're gonna lose so big. You're gonna get so tired of
I'm gonna
losing.
love it. I'm gonna be
You're gonna
canceled.
love
It's gonna
losing
be
so
so
much.
wonderful. Well, and I will
Is that what
say
you
this.
say in your group meetings when you're like, all right,
No,
guys,
I
there's
will
more
tell
people
you.
being persecuted, and I think we're gonna help them lose some more. Let's
We're
go.
gonna lose together. It's gonna be beautiful. I'll probably die in the process. No, let me give you an example, right? Like, so I founded my organization in 2002. The goal was to stop the invasion of Iraq, okay, which I saw as inevitable. In fact, I was on my first date with my wife when a large NGO let me borrow their tax exempt status. I sent them a letter. Can I be a project under your 501c3
Mhm.
status? And they sent me a plaque and like a nice letter and said we would love to. And our original name was the Campaign for Human Rights and Dignity. We changed it later to the Human Rights Education and Relief Organization. VPP is our main program. So, um, I really thought I was going to stop the invasion of Iraq. Da-da-da. And then, I was like, okay, we invaded Iraq. That's not the part I was worried about. I mean, I was really worried about what happens when we leave. And I thought Americans lacked fortitude and will, and that we would shatter order, and that there would be ethnic cleansing of the minorities like the Christians and the Yazidi and the Kurds. Um, and so I thought, well, now we just need to keep America there. So it was funny. Like in 10 years, I went from being a pacifist, coddler of a tyrant to a warmonger who never wanted to leave Iraq. And then we left Iraq. So I wanted to stop the invasion of Iraq. Then I wanted to stop the withdrawal from Iraq. Then I wanted to stop the toppling of Assad, and it was just like we just failed, failed, failed. But Girard helped me understand that to stand in solidarity with the vulnerable is to become vulnerable. And so I I manage not achieving the objectives I set out to achieve better now mentally. But I will also say we've had a lot of success. Like when I founded the organization, I had a very, very specific goal. I wanted to harness, wealth and power and prestige in the service of the weak. I didn't want to use the weak to acquire wealth and power and prestige, which is victimism, which I would have known that at the time. But I wanted to use fame and celebrity and influence to serve vulnerable communities. And
You
we
were gonna
have
be
been,
like setting bricks aflame in Japan and then cutting them with your fists and stuff, breaking them.
Yeah, well, you know,
and
it's
then after
strange.
the autograph session, you would do a charity thing for the victims or something, right?
Yeah, basically, I'm a
That
Ronin.
was your original model,
I
right?
wanted to be a masterless samurai, and I am. But well, look, but here's the deal: we've been very successful in doing that, right? Like we played a major role in getting the Uyghur genocide designation.
Mhm.
We're one of the only organizations in the world bringing food into the Christians in Gaza. We were very successful in evacuating people from the east of Ukraine, even after Russia passed the lines. We're the only organization I know of still evacuating, sheltering, and hiding and resettling America's allies in Afghanistan. So we have had a lot of tremendous success, you know, but the world is all there. There's still 3 million Uyghur in concentration camps. The rise of Hindu nationalism, which I'm studying now because of just the rise of the brutality of the Hindu nationalists against the first century Christian communities of India, is going unreported and unnoticed. The child slave labor in Congo harvesting cobalt for our electric vehicles, and my article today on Elon Musk, which discusses this, came out today. So, I was just young and naive. Yeah, I thought like I'll stop the invasion of Iraq. Yeah, well, no, probably not.
But see, the thing is like, and I know this is kind of like a little bit. This is for another topic, but for another time. But we have to have the best aspects of America are glimpsing at what we are actually supposed to be doing once we are restored in Christ to fully actualize the Dominion mandate, which is to say the frontier spirit. Let's go to the moon. Let's go to the Mars. Let's cure cancer. All this, I got to be careful to cut that word out because those people will censor this video. But anyways, uh, yeah, you can't even say that now. I have a weak ban at one of these platforms because of me saying that word.
Well,
Yeah,
why?
the C word. That's how fascistic a lot of these social media platforms are.
Why can't you say that word?
Because you're not allowed to heal it. Yeah, that's how in bondage we are to really depraved minds. Yeah, it's really
Wow.
yes. I
Wow.
can't.
No, we live in wild
Yeah,
times.
yeah, man.
And I
It's
want to
really
get to why I'm being like canceled today.
yeah.
And it's like I'm being canceled for what I'm being canceled for right now, which I'm uncancelable because I'm so small, and don't quit and don't care.
Yeah.
But it's strange like that you would be canceled for saying that.
Oh,
Well,
yeah. And they
President
always
Trump.
get me for the medical stuff. They banned my first YouTube channel during COVID because I would take callers on my radio show and they would just ask questions. You're not even allowed to have callers on a live radio show on streaming it on YouTube because they're going to say stuff like the lady said something like this pandemic looks like some kind of a fraud or scam, and they're like, oh, and they deleted my whole channel and everything for that. So yeah, you can't say
Well,
anything.
can we say this? I want to know how far it goes. Like, if you read my book, The Great Campaign Against the Great Reset, you will, in less than a week, have rock hard abs. Period. It's going to happen. It's guaranteed.
Yeah, you're allowed. You're allowed.
Are we allowed to give rock hard abs?
Yeah, you're allowed to scam people all day long
Can I
from
tell
the
people to look 10 years
establishment's
younger?
perspective.
Their teeth will be white. They'll look
Yeah, the
younger.
scams are recommended by the algorithms, but the truth will get you blocked and deleted. But anyways, okay, here's what I wanted to say about the best of America. Okay, so the
Yeah.
thing is like you're talking about cobalt and I want to get into that a little bit. You said Elon Musk, is he a hero, villain, or a bit of both on stream.org? That's your article. And you mentioned the cobalt thing. Like, I know this sounds a little sci-fi, but I've seen a lot of evidence that there will be a way, if we can have the intelligence and the resources to investigate it scientifically, to transmute ordinary trash elements into rare earth elements. So through using God's creative vision, we could have a day very soon, even in our own lifetimes, where we don't even have to have this question of, is this man a villain because he's trying to use cobalt and it hurts people that pull that out of the earth? We could actually just make it in factories, like magnetically transmuting one element into another. Like, when I say that, the natural inclination is to say, oh, that's wacky, that's weird. No, that's Christian. Christians think about how to
Oh,
bring heaven to earth, you know?
brother, I can give you an example of this right now. It's really amazing. I just had on my podcast, well, about 8 weeks ago, I had on my podcast this doctor from China. He was a victim of the Cultural Revolution, couldn't go to school, but through hard work and his parents, like really, teaching him at home, he made it into Harvard at MIT, and he became a Christian, and he wanted to cure blindness. There was everyone was looking at using embryonic stem cells. But as a Christian, he didn't believe that God would require us to destroy innocent human life to save life. And he didn't take the shortcut. There was just a new Angel Studios movie on this doctor called Sight.
Okay.
All right. So he said, I'm not going to use embryonic stem cells. And so he looked at ways that didn't destroy human life to cure blindness. He discovered creating lenses with, I believe it was the amniotic sac, I believe, and creating little lenses with that you would put on the eyes. You could do certain techniques that would then there'd be no scarring. I'm probably butchering it, but he found a way to cure blindness for millions and millions and millions of people because he didn't take the shortcut. And the
Yeah.
shortcut was a dead end.
Right.
And this is what I want. You have people
That's
like
all I always
Peter.
say. Sin is a shortcut to heaven that leads to hell on earth. You're like, oh, it's
And
something good, and then you try to take a shortcut to get there, and it usually turns into missing the mark, right? And it causes.
yeah, and let's look at Elon Musk because he is somebody I greatly admire. And I've written like several critical articles on him over the past couple of weeks. But the reality is, I think he is a wonderful and interesting human being that is ordered to the common good. He says that he got his start in looking to science and space exploration because he loved big families and he thought he wanted everyone to have big families. And how is that even possible, going forward forever? Well, the only way that's possible is if we colonize the stars.
Yeah.
And so he looked to space travel. Meanwhile, you have Bill Gates, who became obsessed with the problem of population, and he looked to population control as a way to solve these problems, tyranny, forced contraception, all of this. And so you have two men that looked at a similar challenge, population growth, and one said, let's explore space, and the other said, let's force everyone to have only one child.
Yeah.
Um, Also, Bill Gates wanted to, well, he's obsessed with, extending lifespans. So he wanted to like extend his lifespan while preventing other people from being born.
Mm.
So I think Elon Musk is an incredible, beautiful human, and he will do more good for mankind through his brain than I will do through my activism. But I do, but I do think what you said is this is a man that he is a progressive in the sense that he looks to progress as a way to escape the challenges facing the human family. And he probably sees, for example, he's a free speech purist. So the two things I really challenge him on is putting pornography on Twitter, which is devastating. And we can get into that, how that's going to feed into the population problem,
Mm.
the demographic decline problem.
Mm.
I think
Mm.
pornography is devastating population growth. And then to the use of child slave labor for harvesting of cobalt. These are two big, and also partnering with the CCP in the manufacturing of batteries using Uyghur slave labor. Elon Musk needs to stop these things, right? And we need to challenge them on these things. And I think if he is challenged, he will reassess and self-correct.
Aren't these
And
figures kind of like? I mean, when you're that wealthy and that powerful, he's kind of like a modern day version of a king, like um, Nebuchadnezzar, or the what's the one? What Cyrus, was it? Cyrus, the one in the Bible that was favorable, that was kind and generous.
yeah,
And then there was also who's the other one recently? Oh, well, you have Constantine. These are complicated figures, like if you were doing a podcast during the reign of Constantine, you'd probably have a lot to critique about him too, wouldn't you?
100%. And the
And
critiques
you'd
are
be
not
probably
meant.
killed for it too.
Yeah, look, why, I'm willing to do that because
Yeah.
it's my apostolate. But at
But I'm
the end
saying,
of the
isn't
day,
that ironic that even like an ostensibly iconic Christian figure like that, like if you were to make like Christian critiques of him in the public square, probably would have been getting you really hurt.
oh yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And one of my companies is named Milvian Bridge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if I was alive,
Yeah.
yeah, the Battle of Milvian Bridge would have, in one way, directly resulted in me being beheaded. So that's
Mhm.
fine. But I look, I think Elon Musk is a great human who strives to be a good man.
Mhm.
And where I would look at someone like Bill Gates is just, without God's incredible grace, just beyond my reach. I don't think, but I do believe, like we talked about, these people that are in real positions of influence, we can text, we have their cell numbers. And, I'm 1 degree.
You text mean emojis to Bill Gates?
No, I'm not, I don't have his cell number, but I'm 1 degree. I'm like from 10 different
I
people.
guarantee you he has yours.
Yeah, well, that's true. He has my emails. That's true. He has my emails going all the way back to college. He has my Hotmail emails. Oh my God. That was alone will do me in. But um, but I'm 1 degree of separation from Elon Musk from like 20 different people,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I send them all my articles, and
those are all his kids, right? The 20 different people you're talking about.
yeah, no, not his kids. But we kind of run in similar circles and we have similar
Yeah,
friends.
yeah.
And
When
so
are
I
you
don't
gonna
know,
roll out the Jason Jones Roadster?
the Jason Jones
You're
Roadster.
gonna make your own car? Come on.
No, I'm in the market for a new car, and I'm startled at how expensive they are. I said to my wife, "Never mind, I'm not." I had all these.
Oh, how far
I,
away? How far are you away? You live in Texas. How far are you from Elonville, that place he's building over there?
very
Yeah,
close. Drive past it
yeah,
all the time, and my sons are fascinated how many
yeah.
gyms are in it.
Well, hopefully
But
he'll find hopefully he'll find Christ, and maybe Girard will be the tool that helps him get there. Just like JD Vance was a tech guy who credits, I believe he credits, even in an article he wrote with mimetic theory and Rene Girard helping him find his faith in the Catholic Church. So, did you know that?
I did not know that, and
Yeah,
that's exciting because when that gets out, a lot of people will read Girard.
yeah.
And
That's how it works. You got to get. It's just like advertising. You get the beautiful, cool people, including someone who's VP. That's like the second most powerful position in world politics today. And if he says, "Hey, Girard helped me find God," a lot of people when they hear that are going to be totally interested in Girard, which is a good thing because it's going to
well,
lead.
who's the most natural Girardian? Is Donald Trump.
Right, right,
Let me
yeah,
explain. Let me
yeah,
explain this. I was almost a never Trumper. I was not a never Trumper. In fact, I was meeting with his teams after the election and before the inauguration, and after the inauguration. I was in very close, with the nature of my work, we worked together well. But I just didn't trust Donald Trump at
yeah,
all.
yeah.
And I worked for Cruz. I was national co-chair for Cruz for president in 2016. It wasn't until January 6th, which I was a speaker at J6, and I was there to speak on the Uyghur genocide, and on the
Is that what
and
riled everybody up?
yeah, it was my speech on the Uyghur genocide.
You better
Yeah,
take down
no,
that
no.
rhetoric
In
about the
fact,
Uyghurs,
that
man.
was
Come
it.
on.
That was it. That's when they went nuts. No, in fact, I had said to the organizer, Ali Alexander, I had been asked to speak at several of these Stop the Steal events that other organizations put on, and I said, well, listen, I would love to speak, but I have a very specific mission, and it's to defend the vulnerable from violence and advocate for vulnerable communities, from the child in the womb to the men in the CCP concentration camps in occupied East Turkestan. And I would like to speak on the Uyghur genocide and on what Trump did, and and what Trump did in Iraq with the destruction of ISIS. I wanted to talk about the Trump administration and how it was really a defender of the most vulnerable people in the world, who were, to use a phrase the left loves, black and brown. Okay. And they all were kind of like, no. But Ali was like, yes. I didn't really even know who this Ali Alexander was. I didn't even know much about what this J6 thing was, certify the vote. I'm so in my work, in my world. I'm like, okay, I'll come. By God's grace, some Uyghur leaders were supposed to join me there on stage. But because of traffic, they never made it. And it would have been horrible for them to have been wrapped up in all this nonsense.
Yeah.
But they didn't make it because of traffic problems. But that's why I was there speaking. Now look, this is the wild part. I was walking from the ellipse to where the stage was supposed to be between the Capitol and the Supreme Court. And this kind of probably saved me from getting kind of swept into all the kookiness. I was just walking through this crowd on January 6th is the day I became MAGA. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, I would maybe said I'm an ally, or, I'm a conservative and it's the art of the possible. But it was on that day, as I walked through the crowd, and I just saw a coalition of oddballs. I saw so many Vietnamese flags. I saw so many Chinese. I never saw so many Latinos, especially Latina women, and so diverse. It was the most diverse political rally I have ever been to. It was startling. It was startling. I just was kind of taken aback. And as I looked back at what I was looking at all these communities, and I didn't see the Confederate flag, but I saw a lot of rainbow flags for Trump, even, you know.
Mhm.
And I'm like, what is going on here? I got Hong Kong flags, Vietnamese flags. I've got, you know, all these strange groups. What's going on? And I realized what the deplorables were.
Mhm.
And this is where I think something that JD Vance gets. The deplorables were those that our political elite felt were not worthy of representation. And they actually despised these people, whether it's the working class kid that JD Vance exemplifies and represents, right? Whether it's the former Vietnamese colonel that fought the communists and watched as we betrayed his country. You know, it was the person with same-sex attraction who's conservative and never felt home in either party.
Mhm.
Um, they felt liked by Trump. They felt welcomed by Trump. And that's true. You know, he is a very, in a way, a liberal in the proper sense of the word. You know, this, I think a lot of people will listen to this and go, what is Jason Jones talking about? I think he is a classical liberal. He is an American. He's an old school American. You know, like the old school American guys might even make a lot of racial or ethnic jokes and tease their buddy who's Irish as the Guinea. I mean, his Italian buddy's a Guinea, his Irish friends are all mixed, you know, those
Mhm.
guys. But
Mhm.
that they, if you tried to argue, if you did anything to hurt any of their friends or disparage them, they'd smack you across the face, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
He's just one of those, he's from a different era who respects everyone and thinks the government should represent them.
Right. Yeah.
He saw all these people that were abandoned.
Right.
This is
Yeah.
Girard.
Yeah.
This is Girard's understanding of the gospel.
Right.
And he said, I'm going to stand with you.
Yeah.
And then choosing JD Vance is very interesting because JD Vance represents the people that are seen as just utterly beyond, you know, they don't deserve any empathy or
Right.
compassion.
Right.
The white people from the Rust Belt
Mm-hmm.
who've seen their
And it's
industry.
interesting how JD starts off in dire poverty and drug addicted home. And then
Yeah.
he goes to Yale and he gets accepted by the elites because he's at first the guy who's his little shtick that got him so much mainstream love was that he found a way to write a beautiful book about his life and pain. And then he was able to translate that into a kind of circuit where he would explain to liberals what these little hobbits in the working class communities that voted for Trump were all about, and in a safe way that didn't offend the liberal sensibilities. Right? You know, he could do it in a way that was not too empathetic to Trump. He threaded that needle very well, and that's why they painted him as a never Trumper at first, and then he kind of got whatever happened. You know, he got with the program of seeing how Trump, kind of like a lot of, like you said, a lot
Well,
of people were slow to getting on to
if
Trump's
people would have,
support.
if people would have stuck a microphone in my face in 2016, I
Yeah.
would have probably sounded like a never Trumper.
Now with me, now here's my story. I never was against Trump. I never, you know, was kind of doing my own thing. You know, people would always say, I like his policies, but I don't like his personality. I was the opposite. I was like, I love his personality. I mean, I'm in the wrestling industry for a reason. I love those high energy, over the top. I mean, I sing Frank Sinatra songs. That's my stuff. He's like the closest you can get to like having a Frank Sinatra type, Elvis type, big personality from America still here, right? Of that generation. He's like a throwback from that world where we had these iconic, larger than life figures. And so I love that stuff. And I think it's fun. And so for me, I liked his personality more than I liked his policies. So I was never against him. I've criticized his policies along the way when I didn't like him, but I do agree with you and saw that all the way through is that he was humanizing the officially designated scapegoat, right? They
Oh,
were in the process of replacing the black and brown scapegoats with the white working class poor guy as the new scapegoat. They were in the American civic religion was rotating the pecking order right there, right? And Trump's like, well, wait a second. If you're going to put them at the very bottom rung here officially, like they've been that way for a while, but now you're officially making it that way. I'm going to go touch them and like bring them back with me. And they're like, no, you don't do that. you don't bring them with you to the White House. We've officially designated them as the untouchables. What are you doing touching them?
What are you doing?
And
Well,
that's what
the
happened.
jailhouse snitch with Epstein. Do you know the story of the jailhouse snitch with
Tell
Epstein?
me, yeah.
Oh, an amazing story. Amazing story. So, the guy was in with Epstein and he came out and did interviews. And in the interviews, that one of the things he asked him was like, well, he was on Epstein's jet. And he goes, yeah, Epstein told me about that. And they were going to Florida. And as they were leaving, I guess, New York, he pointed to Atlantic City, to his casino. And Jeffrey Epstein started disparaging the types of people that go to casinos and his properties. And Trump said to Epstein, well, if you don't like those people, you won't like me because we're the same. Those are my people. I'm them and they're me. And they said Trump walked to the other side of the jet and sat there and looked out the window and didn't talk to Epstein the entire time.
Mm.
Epstein also, he'd asked him if Trump ever was interested in the women that he was presenting. And he goes, Trump, no, he was too into his businesses to ever be interested in the women. All he ever wanted to talk about was business, 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 his properties, his businesses, his properties. But like, to me, that's such a beautiful story that like Trump is there. Now, Trump, like, let's be clear, he was kind of born into an elite family, but a
That's what I'm saying. He
working
did the opposite of Trump. I mean,
elite.
he did the opposite of Vance. Vance started off with poor, dire poverty and goes up to the elites. Trump starts off in the elites and kind of resonates with the poor people the more he goes, right? Like
Yeah.
obviously in the building he was hanging out with the construction workers. He liked those guys, right? He liked those people who would get with their hands, they're dirty, get their hands dirty. So um, he resonated with that. But he obviously wanted to kind of hang out with the tabloid, the high society, and it makes you wonder that anecdote you say. I'm sure that Trump was a womanizer, but it makes you wonder if he really did, with his reputation, build into that because he knew the mimetic allure of looking like Bruce Wayne. You know what I mean? With the new girl.
Yeah.
He knew that the common people would like that kind of thing, and that would create
And
this
he
kind of
liked it.
aura.
Like
Yeah.
he was a guy.
Right. Of
And by the
course.
way, it
Yeah.
was the 80s. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad would have been right next to him.
Yeah.
Okay. And so yeah, I find it fascinating. So the Vance in many ways I find complex and I don't know where he's going.
Yeah.
He's kind of been evolving so fast.
Yeah.
But
He's
but
39. He's a young
yeah,
guy.
yeah, exactly. Like I was a different person philosophically at 39 than I am today at 52. And I think though that what's interesting is that he had the courage to say, I am going to speak up for my people, the untouchables,
Mm-hmm.
in his book. The first person to give me his book was Tulsi Gabbard.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, the book had just come out and I didn't read it. I'm from that, right? My mom had me at 16 and I was raised, I'm a high school dropout who joined the army on my 17th birthday. And so I'm like, oh, that's my story. I don't need to read that. I live
Mm-hmm.
that. But it was so interesting that a lot of my friends, left and right, who would not know like my world or Vance's world where we came from, found it so intriguing,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember like Tulsi was like, you got to read this. This is one of the most important books I've ever read. You've got to read this. And Tulsi, coming from like the most charming family with the most wonderful parents, homeschooled in Hawaii, this probably for her. And I think it spoke to what she saw. I mean, I never talked to her about this, but I know that, I mean, I knew Tulsi before she went to the war and after she went to the war. And I think that a lot of like those JD Vance like characters in a medical unit, Tulsi saw in body bags,
Mm-hmm.
So when she entered public life, it was to fight for them. And them for her probably meant her cohorts, her men and women in uniform who were being abused by our elites in these stupid regime change wars. And I think probably what Vance's book did for her was sort of it opened the door from the soldiers she knew into a whole world across middle America,
Mm-hmm.
uh, to help her understand America. So no, it is really heartening because, I have an opportunity a lot of times to be with heads of state, or diplomats. And I use the language of Girard that
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be only World order is going to be arranged in only one of two ways. It is either going to be the powerful exploiting the vulnerable, or the powerful serving the vulnerable.
Mm,
That's it.
that's a good way to put it.
That's it.
I like that.
And, it's sort of the Vulnerable People Project's whole mission is to sort of, through our activism, say, this is how we should be ordering the world, serving the most vulnerable people on earth. The world powers together should be working to serve the most vulnerable communities on earth, the most vulnerable people within our own population. So when we're looking at trade agreements or the temptation to war, we should be asking ourselves, when we looked at toppling Iraq, we should have said, how is this going to affect the average Iraqi? How is this going to affect the Yazidi and the Uyghur and the Yazidi and the Christians?
You can't you obviously feel it when you got skin in the game, when you look them in the eyes, but you don't do that when it's a delegated act of violence through politicians and then bureaucrats and then soldiers. There's so many. All of those stand as scapegoats, by the way. The politicians are always scapegoats, even the ones we don't like. They're scapegoats. They serve as that. They misdirect our energy to their personality rather than the system that is producing this kind of steady state of violence that we're all allowing to happen under our watch. But also the soldier is the scapegoat, because when things go wrong and we see an ugly photo, we say, well, that they did it. No, you did it. You hired them. You hired the politician who then sent them off to war. It's all back to you. And we don't like that, That's why, by the way, and movies, so we can tie this back here. We don't like movies where the bad guy, or, like the ending is obscured. We want to have everything tied up, that the bad guy is defeated and happy ever after, because then that doesn't put the scapegoat blame on us. When you leave things a little bit more obfuscated, it irritates people. Like, I didn't like that ending. They should have tied that up better. It's like, no, it's because the reason why you're feeling uncomfortable is you wanted that catharsis. You wanted your villain defeated and you wanted to get on with life. Right?
Yeah.
But good art makes you wrestle with that. Like, oh, crap. Well, who did it? Well, you did it. If it's good, it should make you feel that way, right?
Let me tell you, I was just in Egypt. How much time do we have? It's kind of a complex story, but
Go ahead.
I was just in Egypt, and we're doing a documentary on the ethnic cleansing of Christians from northern Gaza by Israel. Now, you can imagine I'm a conservative Republican, and this is not making a lot of my friends happy. So, but in North Gaza, they're starving to death. Israel has bombed every church in northern Gaza, and it's a catastrophe. So I went to Egypt. And this was not easy. We had to set up clandestine, because Egypt is not, they don't have freedom of press there and freedom of speech. So it was very challenging to sort of set up clandestine recording studios to interview Palestinian Christians who'd been wounded or family members had been killed and had recently just escaped Gaza. I was interviewing. And it was in interviewing these Palestinians that I discovered something about myself. And because I had been outspoken on how Israel is waging this war in Gaza, no one has actually come out and called me an anti-Semite, but they've said things like, I worry, Jason, or I wonder, Jason, da-da-da. It's okay. Which I have no temptation to anti-Semitism, but I was startled to discover about myself, and I had to reflect and think about this, that I actually am an anti-Palestinian bigot. This is something now, as a guy
that would be anti-Semitic too, then, really.
Yeah, you're right. That because they're actually the most Jewish, with the exception of the Samaritans, of people there. But I had this startling discovery, which you would think, okay, I've been bringing food into Gaza. I've been weathering attacks and losing donors because I'm speaking up on the civilian casualties and the 15,000 dead children, 20,000 missing children, which I'm not going to stop doing. But what happened is I was interviewing these Palestinians, I kept thinking to myself, oh, I'm surprised at how smart she is. Oh my gosh. She has a PhD. Wow. Huh. I'm surprised how empathetic she is. Wow, she's not anti-Semitic at all. I'm surprised. Like everyone I interviewed, I was surprised at how articulate they were, how well educated they were, how compassionate they were, how empathetic they were, that they weren't anti-Semitic. Then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm a bigot. I really thought I was going to interview a bunch of hateful, poorly educated anti-Semites. Now, even if they were that, I don't think their children should be massacred, right? Even if a Catholic leader told me they're the dumbest people in the Middle East, I don't think that would justify ethnic cleansing. In
Exactly. Yeah.
fact, they're the most educated people in the Middle East, which I didn't know. I believed.
Really? That's
I
true? Is
heard
that what do you mean by that? Like
with
on average
they're
or
known
something?
as the intellectuals of the Arab world.
Really?
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah,
See,
yeah,
all these people keep brainwashing. They keep saying that, oh, nobody in the Middle East wants them because they're the pests of the community. You know, they say that. You hear that
and I
all the
believed
time.
it. I believed it. It's just not even true. Well, the reality is they don't want to participate in ethnic cleansing. And actually
Oh,
having
so they're spinning it.
yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah, yeah. They don't the reason why Jordan and Egypt, like they're
yeah.
limiting the reason why the bishop and the
Oh,
patriarchs are not asking the Christians not to leave and leave northern Gaza is because they know they'll never be allowed back and they don't want to be cleansed from where they've been since the first
the good old
century.
conservative media says it's because nobody wants them. They're just too
Right.
much trouble. Nobody wants to house them
Exactly.
because they're too much trouble.
Yeah, they were so unbelievable. I thought, who are these people? And then I thought back, like to my own prejudice, right? Like I'm a normal human being. I'm
Wow. Wow.
probably
What a scapegoating narrative. Hold on. I'm just trying to process this. So
yeah,
that's like someone wants to take your house and kick you out of it. And they're like, hey, go live with Jason. And Jason's like, no, I don't want him to live. He's like, oh, see, that's how bad this guy is. That's why I get to take his house. Even Jason doesn't want to have him in the house. It's like, no,
yeah.
you're standing
And
up
they're
to this.
stupid and they're ugly.
Yeah.
Somebody said to me, a Catholic leader, who one day I might just write about this guy because he's such a
Wow.
I'm not going to say the word. But he had one day, like he was really trying to talk to me on this issue for months. And he said, listen, you don't understand. They're stupid. They're ugly. They have low IQs. At which point, like, because he just realized he just was so angry. Someone else said to me, oh, they're Catholic, but they're Arab Catholics. Like, that doesn't really count.
Oh,
Like, they're literally descended from the Jews that accepted Jesus. Okay.
yeah.
They're descended from the
Yeah.
people that are in the Gospels at Pentecost. Okay. They're descended from the families that attended St. James's Church.
Yeah.
But okay. So, but here's the reality. I want to talk about me. I want to talk about me. All right. I'm the bigot. I'm the bigot.
Oh, you got a confession to make.
I'm a bigot.
All right.
Look, I was shocked. When it really smacked me in the face is when I'm interviewing a woman who fled for her life with her family. Her brother-in-law was killed. Her church was bombed. They had to dig themselves out of a church that was bombed. And I had asked her, you know, if she hated the soldiers, or I forget how I worded the question. She said, I don't blame the soldiers at all. And she was absolutely sincere. These are young boys mostly and girls who were civilians a couple weeks or months before, who were poorly trained and who were brainwashed in an ideology, and they were filled with hate and they were angry about October 7th. And what they did was totally to be expected. Who I blame is the politicians and their military leaders that didn't discipline them. And she was talking about how the IDF soldiers smashed the Christians' homes, broke their crosses, smashed their statues of Mary, lit their houses on fire, wore their underwear, wrote perverse messages on her home wall, and killed her family members. And she had utter empathy. Another man, Khalil,
Wow.
his sister was murdered by the
This is all on
IDF.
video. We're gonna
All
see
of
it.
it. Yeah, you're
It
going to
just
see it
come
all.
out. I'm fascinated.
GazaChristians.com. Some of it's already up.
So there's like sneak peeks, or is it going to come out as a full movie, or just
We're
clips? Or
doing a movie called Betrayed with a Kiss on the ethnic cleansing of northern Gaza of Christians. But
when will that be?
that's probably about 9 months away. But we're going to be putting up a lot of videos at GazaChristians.com.
GazaChristians.com. Go there right now.
GazaChristians.com. This other gentleman who, by the way, like when you get in my kitchen, I'm working. Like I was in Egypt with this guy and we were fighting. Like we were both wanting to get stuff done and we're like banging heads. And he was, and I had to apologize after. I'm like, look, when I'm on a goal, he's like, we're humans, brother. This guy, sister and father, father died during the occupation, during the war, but his sister was literally murdered by the IDF, his 18-year-old sister. This video is up right now at GazaChristians.com. It's an hour or so interview. And let me tell you, I was kind of testing him, I believe. I don't know if I was conscious that I was testing him, because I am also very much concerned about the rise of Jew hatred and anti-Semitism. Like, obviously, when you tell the truth about what the government of Israel does, it can be used to foment Jew hatred. And I don't think a Jewish kid in at Harvard should suffer intimidation for what the state of Israel does any more than I should have suffered bullying and intimidation because I'm of English descent for what the British did in the Falkland Islands. You know,
Mm.
like, it's silly. It's absolutely silly.
Yeah.
But of course, a lot of the pro-Israel lobby says to criticize Israel is to be anti-Semitic. So in a way, they encourage it as
Yeah, that
well.
Nikki Haley says to criticize Zionism is anti-Semitism. She's
Yeah,
literally
and so what she's doing is fomenting Jew hatred. It's
right.
despicable. And
Yeah.
I'll say it, and I don't care if you call me an anti-Semite for saying it, because I actually worry about young Jewish
Yeah,
Americans.
you're not using it for political power. You're
Yeah, I
trying
don't
to,
care. Yeah, I don't care. I have everything I need. I own a house in cash. I have a nice pickup truck. I have the best kickboxing and weightlifting gym in my house and the world's best library.
yeah.
So you can't do anything to me. But this gentleman, I mean, really opened up to me off camera weeks before when we were talking, but I kind of lured him into it on camera. And we had hours of conversations of how we're going to have to address the rise of Jew hatred when, and I like to differentiate, I've been very much influenced by Hannah Arendt between anti-Semitism and Jew hatred.
What did she say the difference is?
Well, anti-Semitism is just more sort of the old-fashioned, your grandpa telling you don't do business with Jews, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then and then sort of this vile desire to annihilate the Jewish people.
That would be Jew hatred.
Yeah. And I really fear the rise. My organization guards churches, mosques, and synagogues around the world that have been exposed to violence.
Mm-hmm.
And so we work very closely with some mosques, and I won't even say the countries they're in, where we have my organization, VPP, pays for armed guards and security cameras. And we actually even drilled wells for communities recently because they couldn't even really walk for water because of threats of violence to the women.
Let me tell you what I think is going on here physiologically. I think a lot of this impulse to, whenever you deal with criticisms of wrongdoing, to have to always guard against the human tendency to want to go the other way. It's all, we can call it the dialectic. That's an easy way to look at it. Okay, yeah. Either we hate them or we love them. It's like we hate them or love them. Okay, they did something wrong, we hate them. Oh, they did something, they did something good. Okay, we love them, and we hate anybody that they hate. This kind of binary thinking is problematic. I think often, I know this sounds weird, I think a lot of this has to do with stress. I think people are so chronically stressed, their hormones are so whacked that they can't think in that abundant state that God operates in, right? That, like, you can say, hey, like you're doing, this is wrong, we cannot do this, but that does not mean you go and hate people who are adjacent in some ethnic way to the people who did wrong. That has to be healed, and I think that has to do with our bodies. I think so many people are sick with chronic cortisol, chronic adrenaline fatigue.
You just need to read the gospel and the letters. And look, I love martial arts, right? That's my hobby. My office is actually in an MMA gym, my real office, and my staff works somewhere else. But my office is in an MMA gym in the back in a warehouse. It's probably weird to people. I always say the devil's a judo master. By the way, I am the most volatile human being I've ever met. Like, I've
shared a car with him. I can attest to this.
Did you experience it?
Everyone I'm just teasing you.
So anyone who knows me well has a story, right? I get in more bar fights than any 52-year-old man should ever get in, right? Still. So like when I saw
You're still living out your Japanese fantasy of being a martial art movie star.
On October 7th, like, my brain was like, flatten Gaza. I didn't say it out loud, Then I see Israel's response to the river to the sea. Like, I'm like, wait, whoa, slow down, brother. Like, I get angry. Like, I have the impulse. So I get it. Like, when I see the October 7th attacks, like, I get the, like, flatten Gaza. But of course, I can, like, say, oh, that's an interesting impulse. Let's look at that. Slow down, cowboy. I
guarantee you that's a stress mechanism in your body. And the fact is that God's grace has allowed you to overcome it.
That's what Girard has helped me understand.
Yeah.
That first of all, the only thing that prevents us from being swept away by the meta contagion is grace.
Yep.
And so that I don't get angry. Like, there's this young woman I adore. She is one of the most courageous, humane, decent human beings I've ever met. And she is Jewish. She's a Zionist, hardcore. She works for a Jewish organization. She, like, one of the first times we met, she told me to watch this movie about this Hollywood movie about the founding of the state of Israel. And she asked me to read these books. She's very sincere. She is wonderful. She's courageous. And, um, we have very cordial conversations on Israel and Gaza. But in my mind, I see her a bit, she is very thoughtful, but I see that she's been a bit swept away by the mimetic
Because it's a
contagion.
stress response. It's a feeling like if we let our guard down, these people are going to kill us. So when you're
Mhm.
in that fight or flight response, that's the amygdala. That's the reptilian part of our brain, the older part of our brain that's more primitive, and it gets activated by propaganda. And if you're in a stress state already, it's just like lighting a match in front of a bunch of gasoline. It's just going to blow up. And that's what happens, man. We've got to deal with people on the physiological level. Get some people a glass of orange juice and stop eating so many freaking seed oils and start healing our minds and bodies, because that's what Christ wants us to do. Healing mind, soul, and body. I'm
Are
not
you
going to
about to
accept this stress state. No more seed oils, man.
are you about to sell a book on seed oil?
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. Well,
is
all right,
there a
don't come on.
code?
Don't.
Grunowski, is there a code? No, I love it. No, but here's the point, and we should be forgiving, right? So when
By the way, what country has the most seed oil consumption per capita of any nation in the world? Israel. They have the highest rates of diabetes too.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, and Ukraine's really bad. I know that because my organization had to provide insulin all over the country when the war first started. But I'll say this, like to your point, and I don't get mad at my Jewish friends or my Israeli friends. I have settler friends. I don't get mad at them for their rhetoric. Like I try to talk to them, and I don't get mad at my Palestinian friends.
Yeah.
Sometimes their heated rhetoric. But you know who I get mad at? I get mad at the stupid American college kid that's like chanting from the river to the sea or chanting anti-Semitic slurs. I get mad at the Christian Zionist or like Eric Erickson tweeting flat in Gaza. I thought it on October 7th, like I think a lot of horrible things. I'm a grown man. Like, unless I'm in a bar at 2 a.m. I've been drinking too much. There's going to be some space between what I think, what I feel, and what I think and say. Especially what I feel, think, and say, and write an article.
But it's like I don't understand how this dialectic is even possibly able to hold with any brain power used, because it's like, okay, Hamas did atrocities, horrible things. All right, first thing we got to do is we got to find out who financed them and empowered them and equipped. Oh God, that's Israel and America. Oh God, what do we do now?
Right? No, exactly.
What do we do now? How do we
No,
keep
it's
them
like it's not
accountable?
easy. I want it to be easy. I want it to be easy. But what we need to do, and this is what I'm hopeful with this Trump administration. I'm worried that there will be the temptation because they're very smart. The people around Trump and this, they're very smart. The temptation to harness this inappropriately. But if we can harness these sentiments and then direct them to thoughtfully extricate the world from the brink of catastrophe. I mean, it's not the brink of catastrophe in Gaza, and it's not the brink of catastrophe in Tel Aviv, and it's not the brink of catastrophe in Ukraine, and it's not the brink of catastrophe in Nigeria, and it's not the brink of catastrophe in Sudan. It's catastrophe already. Okay, in Yemen and in Libya, we really need to extricate ourselves from these catastrophes, and it's going to take thoughtfulness and discipline and a Christian understanding of the dignity of the human person and a recognition of a transcendent moral order. And it's going to take a recognition that other cultures and other peoples and other nation states have interests. And oftentimes, most of the time, all of us in the world have a shared interest, but then there are those, because of history, we've all been ambushed by history. The people of Gaza, the Palestinians and the Israelis have been ambushed by history. They've been ambushed by the fall of the Ottoman Empire. We've all been in bad. So how do we extricate ourselves from history? It's through thoughtfulness. The Palestinians and the Israelis, more than any two people in the world, have shared interests. And we should be
live in the same place. They want the same place to prosper.
Right. We're putting in landmines and claymores for our posterity rather than putting in olive trees. We need to plant olive trees, remove the landmines that history left for us.
Olive trees, not seed oils. We need olive oil, not seed oil. Ukraine, you're right. They have high diabetes. You know why? They eat tons and tons of sunflower oil, which is so inflammatory It ruins your mitochondria. And you think I'm saying something off link. I'm linking it back up to what you're doing because it's
I
all
think
of,
you're about to sell something. I love it. I'm waiting for
I'm I'm gonna if you keep tempting me, I'm gonna figure it out. But what I'm saying is like I'm saying mental illness is associated with high omega-6. I can give you the documentation. Depression, bipolar disorder. See, a lot of these areas that are popping off around the world, they're poor countries, and poor countries are typically eating a diet richer and higher in seed oil. Ukraine, Israel, Gaza, all these places are in a state of like antisocial disorders are rife with the presence of excess seed oil consumption. And that's what I'm saying is that like Christians, we're not just like the spiritual guys. And you know this, right? But we're not just that. We're also body, soul, and mind, right? And we have to think critically about like, okay, if we're feeding a poison to these people, how do we help heal them from that? It's not like overnight you're going to do it, but like that needs to be part of the conversation because I'm telling you, like prison populations, when they decrease their omega-6 consumption, they actually stop fighting each other and beating the hell out of each
Well,
other.
let me say this. Like,
Yeah.
let me find my way to common ground on this. I think
He's like,
that
actually, I'm a big fan of seed oils and I really don't want to go
I am my
there.
show, my podcast is sponsored by Monsanto.
Oh
No,
gosh,
no,
man.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, but what I'm trying to say is like, yes, I think that when we order ourselves to the common good, not taking shortcuts, let me link it to seed oil in a way that I feel comfortable. I look at the agriculture industry,
Yeah.
and I do believe that the food scientists and the people in Monsanto, obviously they're driven by a profit motive, but the people that go into that business that were raised on farms and went to college and
Yeah.
studied food science and were part of 4-H, all of this, they are really obsessed. And I know these people. One of my friends is a big lobbyist for the ag industry, and he doesn't eat seed oil, and I tease him, nor gluten. I tease him about it. He goes,
Put him
"No,
on my show. I want to talk to him.
it's just for my diet. It's just for my diet." I love the guy. Okay, but they're obsessed with reducing food insecurity in the world. How to use the least amount of water, the least amount of land to produce the most amount of food. And in fairness, when I was a kid, I'm only 52. I remember in the 70s, there were Sally Struthers commercials for Feed the Children or Feed the Poor, whatever it was. And they were like bringing JD Vance food. It was like little Jason in Appalachia. There'd be like a blonde kid with no t-shirt on
Gosh,
and like red shorts
that
with
was
like a
JD, huh?
rusty old metal fire
Yeah,
truck in a puddle.
yeah,
Like little Jason only gets 800 calories a day.
yeah.
But for the price of a cup of coffee, you can send food to
They used to do that for
Appalachia.
Americans. Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
when I was a kid. Yes, Appalachia. You were feeding kids in Appalachia. All right, now the kids in Appalachia are obese because, the diets are
Mm.
horrible. They're still food deserts another way. So what I would say is I think I'm going to connect it to seed oils here. We were all ambushed by the tyranny of good intentions.
Yep.
Benjamin Netanyahu, I know his father. I've read his father's books. This is a man who is rabidly driven to keep the people of Israel insecure and defend Jewish interests. Unfortunately, he's an ideologue who's been perverted by pain in history, and I think he's undermining the interests of Israel. The way George Bush undermined America's interests in the world when he invaded Iraq. We can
Yep.
look at the invasion of Iraq. Iraq is now controlled by Iran. There were genocides across the country, killing ancient communities like the Yazidis and the Christians. And you have what happened in Syria. You look at the Taliban is back in control of Afghanistan, and Al Qaeda is bigger than ever.
Wow.
ISIS now exists. They didn't exist before. So
Mhm.
the invasion of Iraq undermined our security. Israel cannot afford to be as stupid as we are. I'm not an evangelical Christian. I don't believe God is sitting in heaven saying, I brought my people back and they'll never be hurt or just scattered again. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. I believe that they're in a very precarious situation and that Netanyahu is undermining their interests because he's allowing the pain of history to drive him to recklessness and ruthlessness in a way that's embarrassing Israel. It's going to lead to, there's a lot of suicides already in the IDF. And this war is going to echo for decades in the hearts of the young men and women who are fighting in this war. And there's going to be a lot of suicides.
Well,
Not to mention,
there's two ways to lead people. You can lead people on a scarcity driven mind or an abundance driven mind. And when you're in that scarcity driven mind, it's ultimately going to be a zero sum calculation. If I win, you got to lose. But when you have an abundance mind, which comes from Christ, there's win win solutions. There's enough for everybody. We can get along
I
on
don't
this
think I
land.
can win if my enemy loses, right?
Right.
We cannot win. If my enemy loses, we
Yeah.
cannot win.
Right.
And because at the end of the day, they're not my enemy. Like, look,
But that's why Christ is so essential, because God's image is in all human beings. No ethnicity has a monopoly on God's image, and that's got to go, because ultimately that's where all of this genocidal insanity comes from, is that kind of mindset, which says that I'm special boy and everybody else's group is not as special. Bullshit.
Imagine if I wasn't a Christian. When I was a teenager, my brothers and my friends and I would get in street fights with like Palestinian gangs. I'm from Chicago in the south suburbs, and we literally would. They were new to the community, and we were always getting.
Is that where you picked up some of your biases that you were exploring in your interviews?
100%. I hadn't even thought about it.
It was subconscious, huh?
I hadn't even thought about it. Well, and I think like evangelical media and a lot of conservative talk shows. So I just think it was, but I hadn't even thought about it until I started working on this article. I remember one night, one of my friends got beat up by some Palestinian guys, and we all jumped in the truck and grabbed bats, and I thought, wow, I'm really prejudiced. Probably I don't have. There's probably I'm sure I suffer. I joke that I have prejudice against any community where the men wear too much cologne and jewelry that you can see outside of their clothing. If that's your culture, forgive me, I bear prejudice against you. So, I was, wow, man. I was like, I do have sort of deep-seated prejudice. But just because we have prejudice, so what? It shouldn't inform how we treat people. It should inform us on how we should pray.
Jesus is the model. Jesus dealt with a lot of prejudiced people, and he didn't kill them.
Right. And, when I notice prejudice in myself, it's not a guide on how I should treat people, but how I should pray for God's mercy and work on myself.
Yeah, exactly. It points out something in your own heart.
Yeah.
That's where the universality, you have to have that. I pray that all the peoples of the world, as they draw towards the reality of God, would know that the universality of God's love and God's image abounds in all human people, and there is no tier system here, bro. We can't do that anymore. That's paganism. Got to go. It's got to go. Got to go.
It's paganism.
We got to go to the future. The future is everybody is a child of God, and that God loves everybody, and that everybody is still a product of the fall too. It's a tension of Christ has come, but he's not yet completed his mission. It's the already not yet tension they talk about in theology. And that is very much at play here. But the whole world, regardless of their religious orientation or ethnicity, has got to get their heads around this concept. And we have to model it for them. That's our job. Those who are Christians already or in the process of becoming like Christ, we have to model this for people so they can see the way out. I heard someone told me, a wise man told me one time, and he was a fan of Rene Girard. He was a mathematician. He was a Jewish person, actually. He was a secular Jewish person. He said, the thing I love about Christ is that he provides a way for us out of the cycle of bullying. He says a bully bullies you because they're looking for your response to see if you can provide an answer outside of the trauma cycle that they keep reliving that was done unto them. And he said Christ provides the mimetic way out of it. And that's such a powerful thing, because he's a secular Jew, but he loves Christ, because he saw in him something that radically was different beyond all anything else. Because in other words, what he's saying is when a bully's picking on you, they're looking to see what your response is. If you feed coward, oh, I'm going to get you, oh, then they double down maybe. If you punch back, they double down. But what Christ does is he neutralizes the whole frame, right? He neutralizes their inertia so that it falls on its own face. And so he allows us to let go of that cyclical mimetic reciprocity that binds up our societies into a kind of social retardation. Jason, tell me about that story about that guy again. The Palestinian Christian has his sister was killed by the IDF in this latest conflict. Is that right?
Say that again. Yeah, his sister was killed
in this latest conflict, or just
in
years
the
ago?
latest conflict. Yeah, just a couple
And he's
months
over
ago.
there talking to you about how do we help Jewish hatred get reduced in America.
Yeah, in the
Now that's
world.
God's love right there,
I
folks. I
cannot.
want
Well,
you to,
the interview's up. It's up.
yeah.
It should be on GazaChristians.com.
But just
And let me,
process that. Just
yeah,
process that for a second. That's
he
amazing, guys.
talks about it. I asked him in the interview. I go, bro, how is this possible that you can do this? He said, either you take the personhood of Christ and his teaching
Wow. He
seriously, or you
said that.
don't. He did.
I'd like to.
And
Can
look,
I interview him too? Is he available for interview or remote?
yes, man. I want look. My
What's
goal is
his
to get my
name?
trucker, and his name is Khalil, and I'm going to connect you
Yeah,
with him.
yeah.
He's out of pocket for the next couple of days. We've been texting. We're actually working on getting trucks into Gaza.
Wow.
Let me tell you about this young man. He is really something
He's a
tremendous.
minister or just
Oh man, I think he's probably just a normal young man. He's
how
got
old is
one
he?
from American. He was working on a second master's in Catholic.
Wow.
He's just a normal young guy. He's a young guy. He's not a saint.
And his
Like,
sister just
you
got killed
know,
by the IDF.
I'm hanging out with him in
Wow.
Egypt, and he's like, "Oh, there's so many pretty girls here." He's just a young man. He's just a cool
Wow.
young man who was ambushed by history. And I tell you what, you know what I'm very good at? I'm better than you at this. I'm better than anyone at this. I'm better than any of the saints at this. I'm very good at this.
Yeah.
I can forgive any sin
Yeah.
done to anyone but me. I'm
Yeah.
so saintly that way. Like if you hurt other people, oh, I can forgive you all day
Yeah.
long. Oh, you're forgiven. God for now you do the slightest insult to me and I will never forgive you. I got to work on that, but I'm really good at forgiving when people hurt other people.
Yeah.
You hurt me, well, that might be not so good.
Let's
So
get let's get that video to Trump and Vance so that can
I
turn their
want
heart.
to, brother. I mean, that would be great.
That
And
can
we're
turn their
getting it
that
up.
video alone. If we can get that video of that young man, if you can condense that for Trump, he doesn't like
We're
2
gonna we're
hours.
gonna make a little
Yeah,
montage
make
in
it
the
a
coming
5 minute
days
thing for him.
of all the interviews kind of collaged
But man, if
together.
you get that story I just heard, I mean, I just got moved and I'm already on their side in terms of peace. I want peace too, but I'm like, I'm concerned that Vance and Trump might feel the need to get a little tough, and I don't want them thinking that way. That's not the right thinking. So I want them to
Yeah,
watch that
let me say this
video.
about Donald Trump. And a lot of
Yeah.
people, and I was just traveling across the Middle East telling them all that they should pray that Trump wins. Then they would point to things Trump said here, Trump said there. And I said, whatever. I said, let me tell you what I have come to understand about this man. He hates war.
Yeah.
He hates violence.
Yeah, he does.
He hates it. He's hated it his
Yeah.
whole life.
Yeah, he's
Like
kind of
you can go back and listen to interviews of Trump going way back. This is a guy, and he doesn't hate war like a Dorothy Day pacifist. He hates it like a man that loves people and likes to see people eating hot dogs,
yeah.
as they're walking outside the casino, drinking a beer with their boys. He likes, when he sees the women coming together for the bachelorette party at his property. I hear stories about how he DJs his own company parties. He used to love to DJ party. This is a guy who loves life, he's a human being.
Yeah.
And we've been governed by like aliens who seem disengaged from, human flourishing. I don't want to say which country, but I met with some very tough characters from a very tough country a couple weeks ago in the Middle East. Tough characters, pro-American guys,
Tough cookies,
but tough cookies. And I shared with them that my interest in working in their country was to just serve the poorest of the poor, that I have no interest in politics. I have no interest in picking sides in any war, but my interest is in making sure the poorest people here, because they're among the poorest and most abused people on earth, that I can work in your community serving these people. I hate war. And these men, each one of them, like with the most sincerity I've ever seen, have expressed how much they hate war and what they personally lost, their wives, their children, their parents, their brothers, all killed by extremist violence. And I said, that's how Donald Trump, you guys, what you feel Trump feels without even experiencing this personally. And so, look, I'm not really worried about the rhetoric that's going to be fueled by special interests that come along with people that write speeches, talking points, and pay for ads. I think that Donald Trump is the one person that can get into the White House that has a natural revulsion to war and can and will, when push comes to shove, do the right thing.
And you know what's interesting too about like just an example of like Trump's aversion to changing policy for donor interests. Okay, Elon Musk 2 days ago or whatever announced I'm going to endorse, or a few days ago he endorsed Trump when he was almost assassinated, and then now it's news that he's going to pledge $45 million a month for Trump's reelection. And with all that said, Trump spent a good deal of time in last night's speech saying how he's going to reverse that electrical vehicle mandate first thing as soon as he gets in the White House, you know?
Yeah, no, and that's what I love about Trump.
That's what I'm saying, man. Where are you going to find a politician like that? You know, you get a $45 million donation commitment a month and you say, I'm going to reverse a policy that would be very beneficial for that man's business?
Yes.
Dude.
But then Musk.
That's character, bro. That's character.
And it goes both ways. And it goes both ways.
Right, yeah.
It's like, crap, I'll solve this problem, you know, but it's going to be a problem. But America is more important. America is more important. Do you know an Afghan friend of mine? This woman is also a hero. Man, I'm going to read you her text. Brother, I'm going to read you her text.
Wow.
This woman is a hero. And she said this to me last night. I follow the news. I'm like, are you watching the debate? Okay.
She's in Afghanistan now or here?
She's in America now. She was an Afghan hero abandoned by the Biden administration. And she is a hero. I don't want to say her name, but she is a hero.
Yeah.
She killed over 200 Taliban herself as a sniper. Very wonderful woman, leader of her people. She says, I follow the news. The situation is changing not only for America, but the whole world. But now I am certain, I see it clearly, that it is the right thing for Trump to become president. The Democrats will destroy America. As an immigrant, I think it may hurt my situation, and I'm very afraid if Trump becomes president. But America is going to be good for America itself. Trump will make America great again, and a great America will make the world better.
Wow.
And I texted her.
That's beautiful.
I said, listen, Democrats lie and they use scare tactics. Trump loves immigrants. He wants them here legally. You are here legally. You have nothing to worry about. Here's a legal immigrant. Yeah. She's legal. Okay, she's SIV. She thinks that Trump being elected is going to cause her to be sent back to be killed. Because if she goes back to Afghanistan, she thinks she'll be killed. I don't think she will be. I think the Taliban is moving towards a direction that it wants to work with the United States, especially with Trump as president. But, you know, that's not going to happen. But she is like, you know, it's clear to her that America needs Trump and the world needs Trump. Even though her own self-interest is going to be, she thinks all these Afghans who came here legally as SIVs will be forcibly deported, which is insane. But these are the types of character of the people that we need, whether it's Musk funding the guy that's going to take away his subsidies, whether it's, you know, this Afghan leader who is like, we need Trump to win, even though it may mean I'm going to be mass deported. Absurd. But, you know, look, we're in a very good place. I'm upset at how the platform, you know, the platform battle went. But that just means as a Republican, outside of my work in my nonprofit, we have to regroup and make sure that our voice is heard more loudly and clearly at the next convention. And I think if you want peace and you want prosperity and you want a presidency that works for a world order that is geared to the protection of the most vulnerable, but we have to do everything we can to make sure Donald Trump wins.
Jason, I really appreciate your time. Check out his book, The Great Campaign Against the Great Reset by Jason Jones. Thanks again for joining me. It's always great talking to you. There he goes. All goes back to karate.
Seed oil.